The world's largest bank just revealed what we knew all along. They are going all in on Bitcoin, and we've possibly seen the biggest backflip out of potentially one of the biggest Bitcoin bears that we've ever seen. And he's been literally going against Bitcoin for a decade. So why is he now going all in? And is he working with the world's largest asset manager in BlackRock to suppress the Bitcoin price? We're going to get into all of this here today. But first, we got to hear what Jamie Dimon had to say about Bitcoin because, well, it's a big backflip here, folks.
Skeptical of crypto at one point. He was still skeptical.
I've gotten away with no damage so far. Crypto is real. If you mean blockchain, stable coins, you have a JP Morgan deposit coin, you can move stuff, smart contracts are real, all that stuff is real. It will be used by all of us to facilitate, better transactions and customer service.
If anybody was skeptical of crypto.
Now he's saying, okay, I was wrong about Bitcoin. It is real. There are some positive things that can be done using blockchain. And of course, he's trying to make the JPM coin to have some settlements done on all of this. But what I think is unique in all of this is just how big of a backflip Jamie Dimon has gotten, as he once called Bitcoin a, quote, pet rock. But now he says crypto, stable coins, they're all real and we're going to use them. And he said this coincidentally while in the Saudi Arabia, who have been rumored to be secretly buying Bitcoin as well. So Jamie Dimon, being one of the biggest critics of Bitcoin and blockchain now, has now seemingly just flipped. And what I think is really interesting, I went through the full breakdown of since Jamie Dimon first brought up Bitcoin in the public eye, literally back in 2014. He said Bitcoin is a terrible store of value. Now, let's see, folks. If you really take a step back and look at, excuse me, Bitcoin back when Jamie Dimon first talked about it, it was, let's say, $240 or so, maybe $1,000. So Jamie Dimon could have bought in Bitcoin if he would have bought in Bitcoin just then, he would be up well over 100x. But that's irregardless of the point here, because now we've seen him 2015. Bitcoin will never survive. It's going nowhere. It's worse than tulip bulbs. He's backpedaling, calling it as fraud. And then, he says he doesn't want to talk about Bitcoin or crypto. Then then JP Morgan launched their JPM coin. Then he described it as not his cup of tea. And he slowly took a decade. But now, as of the other day, you guys saw the clip. He said crypto is real, blockchain is real, stablecoins are real, marking the notable shifts of all of this. So as we see this all going on, it's coincidentally at the same time we're seeing a whale dump 10,000 Bitcoin onto the market. And for those of you guys that keep on coming back, know I've been really closely monitoring the situation with the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges as well as the amount of Bitcoin on OTC desks. And so if you guys are hearing this for the first time, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button with the bell notifications so you can come join the fellas in the chat. But either way, we are seeing the whales now start to come back to life and really just start to dump some Bitcoin, which I think is very interesting, right? Because they're saying, oh, scarcity has deepened here. But we see a whale with 10,000 Bitcoin now triggering all of this. And it's interesting because if you really look at the whales, right, they've got over 45% of the realized Bitcoin cap are just of these big holders. Now, these Bitcoin whales are obviously, some of the big dogs, but we're seeing a lot of these institutional guys start to come in, right? I mean, you guys know I love to track this Bitcoin treasuries chart. We see Michael Saylor buying Bitcoin literally every single week, 640,000 Bitcoin now on their balance sheet, 270 publicly traded companies. The ETFs have 1.5 million, publicly traded companies have 1 million. I mean, the list goes on. And then we see, the governments, the United States seizing more Bitcoin. But what we are seeing, right, is these whales they're impacting market psychology and their increased selling pressure because these guys have just essentially been dominant for quite some time. And now they're starting to dump onto the market, which I think is very interesting. But if you really take a step back and look at JP Morgan and who they are, I think that this is what makes the story of all of this very interesting, because JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, right? They don't get into anything unless they know that they can profit significantly off of it. Same thing with BlackRock, right? And these guys are very closely aligned. I alluded to it in the intro, and we're going to get into all of the connections between the two. But first, I mean, you got to take a step back and look at JP Morgan just in general. I mean, they've been known for spoofing markets. They've been accused of really manipulating the gold markets here. They settled for an undisclosed amount, a lawsuit that accused the firm of spoofing trades in the precious metals market. This suit by hedge fund manager Daniel Sart and 2 commodities traders, costing plaintiffs $30 million in losses. I mean, look at that. Those numbers aren't small, right? It's also nearing a settlement for $920 million to resolve government investigation for similar alleged conduct and the precious metals and treasury market futures, because they've been known for manipulating these markets, right? And so much so that they got a guy literally sent to prison over all of this. So JP Morgan now getting into Bitcoin, everybody might be applauding this and saying, oh, yes, finally, Jamie Dimon is bending the knee. But we have to remember who we're playing with here. These guys are very nefarious characters. They're not just going to get into something unless they can figure out a way how to control it or obtain as much of it as possible. Of course, nothing stops this train, and Bitcoin's going to do everything it can to just run through all these guys. And in the long term, the people with the best motives and everything else are going to end up, winning. But I think in the short term, Jamie Dimon and, JP Morgan, this is where it can get interesting, right? So as we keep on looking, right, who else just recently saw a big sell-off here? BlackRock. They offloaded millions in Bitcoin after weekly buys. So, I mean, hey, I'm not even calling it market manipulation. We have others calling it that, right? Because they're drawing scrutiny that they firm moved millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin just days after executing some of the largest ever ETF positions. They're smart to debate, saying, hey, is this manipulation because it moved millions in Bitcoin after the 1 billion ETF buys? So now it's really interesting, right? Why is BlackRock doing this? And why is this timing here? It's why the timing, right? And now we have Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, right? This connection here, where JP Morgan custodies a significant amount of BlackRock's assets. Now, of course, you guys know I'm covering very closely the custodial situation with Coinbase. So JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, they're not custodying BlackRock's Bitcoin, but they custody a lot of their assets. And if you guys saw in that clip too, right, sitting right there, sitting right next to him was Uncle Larry Fink. So all of these guys, right? They were all sitting really close to each other. Jamie Dimon, oh, it's perfectly fine. We've got Larry Fink here shown at the beginning, right? So all of these guys are very connected with everything. And if you take a deep dive, which I'm going to keep diving into, it goes deeper than just this $1 trillion worth of assets that JP Morgan custodies them. I mean, JP Morgan joins BlackRock as they've joined this investor, the TXSE group, because they wanted all of this investor relations going together. So as we see Jamie Dimon bend the knee here at the Saudi Arabia's mega investment summit and Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit, coincidentally, we've seen JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon be convicted of market manipulation well before, right? So now they're offering Bitcoin to their clients, and all of a sudden, as soon as Jamie Dimon and company say, hey, Bitcoin is good, we think Bitcoin and we need to embrace all of this technology. With all this, we start to see whales just come out of nowhere and start dumping. It really makes you think, what the hell is going on here, right? Because if you look at the Bitcoin on OTC desks, I was telling you guys, hey, there was a potential liquidation crisis here. Oh, well, now it doesn't want to let me show this. But there was a potential liquidation crisis. But these OTC desks, they were on decline for quite some time, right? There was like 200K Bitcoin left on OTC desks. But now, yeah, there was only 156,000 Bitcoin left on OTC desks at one point in time earlier this year, but a lot has been now dumped and getting a lot of Bitcoin on OTC desks here recently. We saw, oh no, this was from October of last year. We saw more all-time highs really start to get. And CoinDesk doesn't want to let me read this, but essentially the crypto liquidation cycle, everybody in these OTC desks were really raising up and seeing like massive amounts start to come in. So the big players are starting to buy Bitcoin as these whales are dumping it. So these whales are dumping onto exchanges because these are the guys that will be able to buy and settle them out, right? So as we start to see this really increase, I think the timing of this has to do with something that we just saw from the presidential announcement here. But we're going to get in all of that in a second. First, I mean, when you see these whales dumping, the first thought that comes to my mind is, why the hell are they selling? Okay, I get it. Maybe you don't want to be involved anymore. You want to just get out while you can. But there's tools now that allows you to not sell Bitcoin. One of those being Salt Lending. You could go to saltlending.com/green-candle today, or the link down in the show notes. And if you do that, they will give you an exclusive offer for Bitcoin, or for Green Candle listeners, starting at 8.95% with a 12-month duration, 70% LTV. And they're giving you guys the best of the best because they see the Green Candle listeners. They're like, oh, these guys are smart. They know what they're doing, guys and gals, They know what they're doing listening to this guy with a shitty mustache coming at you live with a backwards hat from Greece on a Saturday night. But as these US banks are now starting to embrace Bitcoin, right? It makes you wonder, what the hell is going on here? Why are these guys all of a sudden looking at Bitcoin and starting to embrace it, right? And as I'm lining out here, it seems like they're just going to utilize Bitcoin if they can control it. And we see these whales really start to go all in we see these whales really start to get out of their positions and go a different direction, right? Whether they're just like, all right, now it's my time to just go right off in the sunset. But we see Bank of America's CEO saying, hey, that they're going to use it for payments if regulators allow it. All of these different aspects. Hey, give us some more of your money so we can go buy these ETFs. And then all of a sudden, when these ETFs are pumping, when Bitcoin's price is pumping, we'll just dump it on the market for you. Right? So you really got to ask yourself, why did this dump happen? And honestly, the reasoning why I think it just happened is because of this right here. Trump saying that, oh, he would love to reduce the tariffs on China by another 10%, but they've got to come to some sort of agreement. There's some geopolitical tensions here that everybody is seeing. And, they're calling it the taco trade, right? Trump always chickens out, I believe, is the verbiage here. So a lot of people just don't like, Donnie T here. And they think that he's essentially just utilizing all of these market changes in order to play with the price. But I mean, if you take a step back and you really look at, you look at Bitcoin, right? We're sitting at 110,000 right now. And if Jamie Dimon would have bought Bitcoin when he first started talking about it in 2014, well, he would be up 110x at least, right? So it's absolutely crazy that we're seeing Jamie Dimon come into the Bitcoin space and just be like, oh, this is perfectly fine. But this is where I think it's going to start to get hairy, right? Because now that we see these big players coming in, what do these big players like to do, right? They like to be custodians. This is where they see that they're able to make their money, right? And this is why I'm always preaching self-custody, because, Jamie Dimon, BlackRock, these guys, they'll buy Bitcoin for you, right? And then they'll see it, they'll dump it on the market. You won't really know what the hell is going on. And when you see this price or when you see the market just dump like it is, you're wondering what the hell is going on here. So with this market, getting dumped on and all of these different avenues and all this and that, if you hold Bitcoin in self-custody, that is the way to go. Right? That's the truly verifiable way. Now, this is why I love the Trezor Safe 7. It's what I use to store my Bitcoin. They gave me one. I was one of the first ones to get my hand on it. You go to the link down below. Go to the affiliate link in the comments and the show notes and get yourself a Trezor Safe 7. This is the best, slickest hardware wallet. It's so easy to use. It's got a great touchscreen. You can use it as wireless, or you can have it access Bluetooth if you'd like. You could do all that and set it up literally within minutes. You get yourself a Trezor Safe 7. You go there, affiliate link down below, and then you go to CryptoSteel. You go to cryptosteel.com/greencandle. And when you do that, you use promo code GreenCandle on CryptoSteel, you'll get 10% off your entire order. And you don't need a hammer. They've got a cheap solution, $25. And look, I don't know a lot of things that require, full-fledged, look at this, $60, $30 if you want something like this, right? And if you use promo code GreenCandle, that's $27. So you can back up your Bitcoin without a hammer for the cheapest, and you can set up everything. And you need to get a backup, because if you don't, and you lose your hardware wallet and you have it written on paper, and I don't know, you spill some coffee on it or something, then you could never find your Bitcoin. But even if you lose your hardware wallet, you can still access your Bitcoin if you have your CryptoSteel. And you guys need to do that quickly, because these big players, they're seeing the utility of Bitcoin now. And this is where I think it's going to get very interesting, because it's not just, these guys, Jamie Dimon and others, right? We're seeing Mexico, right? The third largest, richest man in the world, Richard Salinas, coming out and saying things, oh, humanity will forever be indebted to Satoshi Nakamoto. We're seeing just a lot of banks start to come in. Venezuela, look, I mean, of course, Venezuela has its own problems, right? The currency is getting hyperinflated away, but they're preparing to let their banks send and receive Bitcoin. So the banking industry is really starting to come alive to the whole Bitcoin space. And this is where I think it's going to get really interesting. Because as these banks start to develop more into either Bitcoin custodians, maybe we have Lightning involved in some of these payments. This is where, the big dogs, they're going to come starting ready to eat, right? They see Bitcoin as a way to give their clients access to more things to invest in. And when they have more things to invest in, well, the banks make more money, brother. So this is what they really want, right? And what's interesting is Brian Armstrong is always saying, oh, they don't want to be a bank. They don't want to be a bank. But people, for better or for worse right now, do trust the banks. People don't trust the Brian Armstrongs of the world. At least I don't. I'm not saying I trust the banks, but they're trying to create some sort of enemy here at Coinbase and at these other places, right? So as they start to create this enemy of the banks, but they have to essentially become banks in order to play the game, it's interesting, right? Because Fidelity, look, they're now allows Bitcoin and crypto deposits 2.5 years after launching, right? So now, like, you don't need, and when you take a step back and you look at like how significant this is, there's this guy on Twitter, Guy Talks Finance. I don't know if you guys have seen him here lately. But Guys Talks Finance has been one of the biggest Bitcoin bears on the planet, similarly to Jamie Dimon. And then when the traditional financial world looks at Bitcoin, they still trust their banks. They still trust all of these partners. So he even said here, I'm transferring my Bitcoin from Coinbase to Fidelity immediately. And I'll be able to start buying a lot more Bitcoin here, right? So, I mean, as we still get into, even if we have Jamie Dimon, where his like detailed track record that I went over with you guys here from 2014, literally being wrong on Bitcoin for 11 years, literally 11 years, he's been wrong. And then now he finally admits it. Well, traditional financial people, Guy Talks Finance, right? I mean, this is who they still trust, for better or for worse. This is where they look at Bitcoin and all of the things going on and they say, hey, you know what? We still look at Warren Buffett as, a genius, right? They hold $381 billion in cash. But Warren Buffett won't be buying Bitcoin anytime soon. He's going to be late to the game. I mean, all of these guys, right? Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, they all say extremely negative things about Bitcoin. Some just take longer than others to get online or in the game, let's say. And when you step back and you see the progression of Jamie Dimon over here, right? When you see Jamie Dimon over 11 years, essentially double, triple, quadruple down and say how terrible Bitcoin is. And then now he's, essentially saying, oh, you know what? Bitcoin's won. I think we're just in the first couple innings here, folks. I think we've still got a long amount of time. And I mean, you guys have heard on my videos on this channel, there's more millionaires. There's 63 million millionaires in the world, and there's 13 million wallets that have 1 million sats or 0.01 Bitcoin or more. So as we get deeper into these cycles and more people get to adopt Bitcoin, we're going to see these bears turn into bulls here pretty soon, just like we saw with that Guy Talks Finance, just like we're seeing with Jamie Dimon. But let's not mistake these guys for friends, right? Because as I said earlier, Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, BlackRock, these guys don't get into assets unless they know that one, they can manipulate them, or two, that they can make a lot of money off of them. So I really do believe that they say, that they see this as the possibility. And I'm going to be covering it all for you guys. So make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button, hitting that like button for me. Send this one to the stratosphere. Help send this algo and make this get seen by more people. And join these guys in the chat. As Al Knight or Hyder is saying, it's personal. Exactly, right? Transferring the counterparty risk. It's just not, it's just not the way to do it. Bitcoin and self-custody. Get yourself a Trezor. Get yourself a crypto steal. And I'll catch you guys all at the next one.